really the whole idea of today is we want to talk about what Proposition 19 is and how that affects people. And the big question, Maggie, is what's your interpretation of Proposition 19?
Okay, so I think that personal feelings aside, Prop 19's done some really bad things. It's also done some really good things. So I guess let's start with the bad news. Bad news first, right? So prior to Prop 19, we had Prop 13 and Prop 58, which most people don't really know the nuances of, but essentially Prop 13 and Prop 58 allow your children and qualifying grandchildren to receive your property taxes, your low property tax basis, right? So if you purchased your house 50 years ago for $80,000, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the assessed value over time, your assessed value, your low property tax basis, you're paying that $3,000 a year in property taxes. When you die and you leave that house to your children, they would have received that $3,000 in low property tax basis.
Mm-hmm. I have explainer videos that I'll attach to the video as well.
Okay, good. So until Prop 19 came along. Mm-hmm. So Prop 19 has significantly narrowed that parent-to-child property tax exclusion. So in order now to claim that property tax exclusion, to keep that low property tax basis, your child must make your home, your primary residence, their primary residence. That's the exception now. And so so how is that going to work going forward? That means if you have a rental property, your rental property is going to be reassessed at your death. If you have a commercial property, that property is going to be reassessed at your death. Any sort of investment property, that will be reassessed at your death. A family vacation home, that cabin, something that's been going down for generations, that will be reassessed at your death. If your home is not your child's primary residence, it will be reassessed at your death. Your home may be partially reassessed because another bad part of that Prop 19 is that prior to Prop 19, your principal residence could be of any value at all, and your child can still receive it and receive that low property tax basis. After Prop 19, you can only pass the $1 million. So it's the $1 million between the fair market value and the assessed value. So if you had an assessed value of $200,000 and now your home is worth $1.5 million, then it will have a partial reassessment and a new assessment base. Yep. So there is a possibility of that too. So that's the bad news, which is a bummer for a lot of people. I don't think they really understood the ramifications of that part of it. And I don't think it was properly explained, properly advertised. It felt sort of buried in the proposition. I think it will be a real shock to a lot of people.
Right. You know, I had this conversation with a lot of people, and most of the conversation was around Proposition 15, which their ploy was to tell people that the money that they're going to raise from Proposition 15 was to go towards education and housing affordability and homelessness. But I had my reasons as to why I didn't think that was a good idea. And there was a foothold incursion proposition, which meant that they were going to attack commercial and industrial property first. But then think about this, right? First they get the commercial and industrial, and then all of a sudden, 5 years later, they go, oh, all apartments, anything that's over, 2 houses is considered an investment property. So now that's considered commercial, or however they want to zone it.
We don't know how they're going to apply any of this. That's the other thing. We don't know.
Right. And then they go back and, 5 years after that, they're going to go, oh, guess what? We just had an emergency meeting, and now no houses, no single family houses, no condos, no townhouses, no ownership has Proposition 13 anymore. That was my fear about Proposition 15, was that they were taking it away from us. And that, if you know what Proposition 13 is, it only raises your assessed value 2%.
2%, yes.
Right. And also within that, they only are allowed to tax you no more than 1% of the total assessed value. So in Santa Clara County, we have 0.79%, or almost 0.4%, which is less than 1%, which is fair. But then they have all these ad valorem and assessment taxes that we pay, and it's
keep adding on every year. Yes.
So we tell people, think about 1.5%, because that's about what you pay. So my fear with that was no, right? Proposition 19 was this big, murky, muddy thing, and they were like, "This is good, this is good." And I looked at who was paying for it, and guess who paid the lion's share?
Guess who pays for it? Yes.
Right. So with this whole removal of all the Proposition 58, 193, 60, and 90 are kind of gone, right? Or are they gone?
Yeah, well, so 60 and 90, that was the good part of the Proposition 19. So I can't say it was all bad. It was probably the best part of it was Prop 19 has amended the 60 and 90 so that if you're over 55, if you're disabled, if you were part of a natural disaster, now you can transfer your principal residence low property tax rates to anywhere in the state of California. Whereas before, it was either the same county or any of the 9 participating counties in California. So it's really opened it up to the entire state. You can do it 3 times. So before it was just like, pick your one move and that's it. So now you can decide, hey, I didn't really like moving to San Diego and all the sunshine, right? I'm going to Sacramento or whatever you decided.
Or vice versa.
Or whatever. And there's no value limits anymore. Prop 60 and 90 really limited it to an equal or lesser value home. But now if you want to retire and go big or go home, right? Then you can actually increase the property value if you wanted to. So it wasn't all bad. Right. And that's really the part that the proposition really emphasized was, let's give relief to all of these elderly. Let's give relief to the fire victims. Let's give relief to all of this. And they really buried all of the Prop 19 negative stuff sort of in the middle. You wouldn't have seen that.
And from my point of view, as a realtor, as a real estate agent, it does open it up. So the retired people that are on a fixed income that were afraid to move now have an option, right? They can move pretty much anywhere they want in the state, and it won't affect their property tax. They can transfer that property tax wherever they go. That will allow us to open up the inventory, which has been a huge problem for us the last decade.
Yes.
Right? Part of the reason why California homes are so expensive, especially here in Santa Clara, is one, we have great weather. We have great things to do. There's so much stuff for us to do here.
Right.
There's a lot of VC money. There's a lot of engineering money. There's a lot of big tech companies that come here and they're like, well, I just want to buy a house and live the American dream. And it makes it more difficult because the lack of inventory compared to the demand drives prices up. And now that we can tell retired people, hey, you don't have to live here. You can live down in Santa Cruz County or, Fresno, Bakersfield, or go up to Chico or Humboldt and live out there. That's a huge advantage, because before you were limited to only 9 states or 9 counties, sorry. And that was, and before it was like, oh, well, I have to buy a smaller house. And the idea behind 60 and 90 was, well, you should be an empty nester and you're going to buy a smaller house.
Right.
So,
most people are going to be downsizing at that point, but maybe not.
Right. Now you can go get that mansion down in San Diego.
That's it. We're going to the beach. Right. We're going to go get our condo and we're going to retire big because we can.
Because why not? I put money away. I lived conservatively and I invested wisely, and I have this big, huge nest egg, and I'm going to enjoy my mansion in San Diego or wherever it is you want to go. You can go to Palm Beach, Palm Springs.
There you go. Springs, yeah. Palm Springs, Palm Beach or Palm Springs. Yeah, either one. I'm there. Count me in.
So that's the good stuff. The bad stuff is if you're a landlord